Hey everybody, Dave here. Hope you're having an awesome day. So, my last video was super simple. I totally get it. I was so under the weather. I was sicker than a dog. So, I appreciate everybody kind of sticking with me. As many of you know, I went to Japan, and while I was in Japan, I was hunting for these Machine Krager model kits, and I thought it would be really fun to build one on my YouTube channel. But then when I started researching paint jobs and stuff, I started looking at other people's like customs, and I was like, I want to build my own so bad. When I was in Japan, I had the awesome opportunity to meet up with BP Customs. Ben, we were able to have dinner with his wife and his kiddos, and it was such a treat. And while we were there, he gave me two model kits, and he's like, "Yeah, they're kind of weird, but I figured there's some cool parts in there." And sure enough, I found some really cool parts, and I got a Kinder egg, and we're gonna make a custom robot. I haven't done it in a while, so let's do it. All right, so here's the model kit that Ben gave me from BP Customs Creations. There's some vintage Japanese model kits. They are a little funky, but they've got some really cool parts to them. So I'm digging through my bits, and I'm like, I got this cool Kinder egg, and I like the base of this thing here. I think it might do a really cool little cockpit area. So I'm just kind of measuring it out. I don't love the height of the Kinder egg. It feels a little too tall. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll snip off the bottom portion. So I'll just clip that off with some snips here. And I think the height of the top part of the Kinder egg will be perfect. So I'm kind of test fitting it, and it feels a little bit loosey-goosey in there, so I need to build that out. So to do that, I'm going to take the zip tie. I'll just snip the end off here, and I'm going to wrap it around the Kinder egg. I'm kind of just doing a test fit here. The zip tie is really springy, so I need to figure out how to get that to curl a little bit better. So all I did was I just took a wooden dowel, and I wrapped it around the wooden dowel super tight. I maybe could have heated this up, but I didn't need to in this case, because wrapping around that small dowel gave it a nice shape. So I'll give it one more test fit here, and I think that's going to work out pretty nice. Now, before I put this all together, I'm going to go ahead and put the bottom portion together. I'm going to snip these little pieces off here. I don't need them for this, but I am going to save these because you never know when you need a good little greebly. So put that in my little greebly box. I'll go ahead and glue this together here. I'm using my BSI Instacure. I love this. This is a really good CA super glue. I use the medium gap. It's probably my favorite. After I got it glued together, I did notice I got little nubs here, so I'm going to take my sanding stick and just file those down. And then I'll wet sand the thing as well, just so I can get it nice and smooth. I'm going to sand the edges of this and the edge of the zip tie, just so the super glue holds. If you sand everything down, you're going to get a nicer grip and hold. Now, whenever I'm gluing something that wraps around, I like to start at the front, and I'll glue just maybe like a half an inch, and then I'll use a kicker, this Instacure kicker, and it helps the super glue set really fast. And that way I can glue a little bit, lay it down, I'll use some more kicker, glue a little bit, lay it down, use some more kicker, and I can just kind of work my way around carefully. The nice thing about the zip tie, it does have these little lines, so I'm going to go ahead and just snip that off, and then I was able to just clip one little line at a time until I got it to line up perfectly and close that little gap. So I'll kind of finish this off here, lay that down, do one more hit of kicker, and I think this is going to give like a cool metal band around the bottom portion. That's at least my idea. I think later on I'll paint this kind of a metal color. Now, once I clipped it into the base, there were some weird little gaps that I don't love. And so I thought, well, maybe I could fill that with greblies. And I thought, oh, you know what? What I'll do is I'll just do a second band. So I did the same process. And then I'll just do a quick test fit, click this in here. And yeah, that fills out those little holes. And again, when I paint that metal, I think that'll look pretty cool. I'm going to sand down the rest of the body because I'm going to be gluing a bunch of greblies onto this, and it'll just help everything hold a little bit tighter. Putting a little bead of glue around the top and the bottom here. I'm glad I lined up that back portion to that little knob, because once I clicked this in, that glue just it insecure. It just set super fast. So be careful when you're dealing with that. Got a little box of greblies. I've got greblies everywhere. Somebody sent me these really cool little metal bits and pieces. And so I thought, oh, it'd be cool to do some like exhaust pipes coming off the back. Now, I typically am pretty conservative with my greblies. I don't like to overbuild stuff, but for whatever reason, I just had this hankering to just go nuts. I was like, I'm just going to greebly this thing out and not overthink it. So I just started gluing them down. And I was kind of working my way down. I was thinking maybe pipes going all the way down the body. And I was like, I don't love that. So I gave a quick test run of what if I clustered it in threes, kind of like a little triangle. And I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool. The glue hadn't really set 100% yet, so I was able to pop that off. And man, that looks great. I really like that. It has a very Japanese model kit, Gundam kind of vibe. I had this old toothbrush piece here, and I thought, this is a cool antenna looking piece. But the more I looked at it, I was like, oh, it is getting a little cluttered back there, and I think that might be too much. So I'm going to save that for something else. I had these little nylon washers. Again, I think the person that sent me, one of my viewers sent me a whole bag of all kinds of goodies. So these are perfect. I think what I will do is drill some holes in this later, and I can run hoses maybe down to the legs or some other part of the body. So for the front here, I'm going to take another little metal greebly, glue on a little eye. I think this is like a countersink thread or something, but the size is really nice for an eye. So I like that. And again, I'm thinking I'm going to just greebly this thing out. So I'm going to put like a little sensor. So I've got my little diamond beads. They're the little art beads that people make, little mosaic arts. You can get them at your craft store. Now, I found this little canister of like propane tanks, and I thought this actually is a little bit smaller, and this could fit on the backside where I was going to put the antenna. So I'll put a little bit of glue on that, flip it over, and this little space here, it fit perfect, and it doesn't look too cluttered, so I'm like, I like that. So I'll get that lined up. And like I said, I just started kind of gluing greeblies all over the place. I had this little tiny metal washer. I thought, I like that there. I have a whole bunch of little components that I think I got from like a cell phone or something, an old cell phone. I just pulled out all these little connector pieces, and I thought this is kind of fun. Maybe it'll give like an idea of maybe little panels on the side of the robot. So gluing those on there, glued a second one on. Maybe I'll run wires off of those. I don't know. I just kind of have to get the feel for it. And as you're building this out and you're putting all these things on, it looks super odd. Like there's just so much happening with the yellow and the red and the blue and the silver and then the black. And it's just like, wow. But once you prime this thing, oh, it is so beautiful. Just taking a little piece of polystyrene, and I snipped the edges off. Thought that could look like a pretty cool little panel. Now, I'll be totally honest. I was hunting around for some legs, and I found these Gundam legs, but they were too wide. Like the stance was weird. So I dug around. I had this other robot, and I found this robot on clearance, I think at Big Bad Toy Store for like $6 or $7. And so I thought, these legs are really cool, but the stance is a little too wide. I don't love the hips. Also, this thing is looking kind of like a minion. Hopefully that goes away. I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half and cut out the middle section just to kind of pull the hips in. And I think that looks pretty nice. Now, I do want it to go up into the body a little bit, so I may Dremel out this section here just so the legs sink up into it a little bit more. So here I'm gluing this together. Now, the dremeling and the sinking of the legs didn't work as easily as I thought it was going to. What I did was I took my little Ryobi Dremel tool and I dremeled out like little hubs that the hips could slide up into. The problem was the little green base that holds the two legs together was bumping up against the bottom of the blue piece here. And you'll see this when I kind of line it up. It's like, oh man, it doesn't really fit in there. So my solution for this was to Dremel out the bottom half, and then I'll snip all of these extra little pieces out. And then I got a sanding stick and I kind of sanded everything. So I had a really nice fit when I slide this green piece of the legs in. it fits really nice. I might open up those hips just a little tiny bit more, but I think that's going to work. So what I'll do is I'll take a little bead of glue, I'll glue that on, and then I'll slide the legs up into there, and everything fit really nice. And the legs still move, so I like that. For the arms, I was thinking it'd be fun to have like a cannon on one side and then a robot arm on the other. So I kind of dug through all my bits. I found this little cannon, but I drilled the hole a little too big. So I thought, well, if I take this brass rod, I can slide that in, and then that will give a better, tighter fit. So I think that'll work. There is a weird little gap right here that I'm not sure what to do with just yet. So I dug around and I found this little metal washer threaded thing, and I thought that works really nice, fills out that gap. Now for the robot arm on the other side, I'm using the same piece from the legs robot that I'm using. The legs robot, you know what I mean. But I need to attach it. So there is this little connector. I thought if I cut it off right there, I can glue that onto the body, onto the blue portion, and then I'll be able to clip the arm on and off. But I was a little afraid of the surface area if the glue would just snap right off because there wasn't enough to hold it all together. So I thought maybe I could take this little polystyrene rod, and I already got a hole drilled in there. So if I drill a hole into the arm peg itself, maybe I could slide those two pieces and it'll give it a little bit more structure and support. So just kind of cramming that in there. I'll trim the rod off. I'll super glue this all up, slide that in there, and that ended up giving me a really nice solid piece there. So I let that dry. I did a little bit of kicker on that, and then after it was dry, we'll go ahead and clip the arm on there. Kind of give it a little push. There we go. And yep, that looks great. I love that. So let me grab the cannon here, kind of line everything up. Now there are some little gaps there, so I need to think about that. Maybe I can fill that out with something. I found this piece from the other model kit, and I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. It could be like a little cod piece in the front. I did Dremel out the back so it fit on a little bit nicer. And this will kind of fill out that empty space in between the legs there. So I just glued that on, and yeah, that looks pretty cool. Now I did find these little pieces, and I thought this is really perfect for a shoulder. So I Dremeled that out, and it fits super nice right on there. I love that. That is great. That's perfect. All right. I have a little hole on the front little cod piece there, so I went ahead and just grabbed another little greebly. I'll line that up, fill that out, covers that up, and I thought maybe some rivets going maybe some rivets going all the way around, and that will kind of look like it's bolted on. So just using those beads again, super glue those on. That looks great. Now the back side, I've got these little holes here, and I thought, you know what? I've got these little threaded countersinks, and they fit perfectly in the hole on the left and right side. And then I have this other weird little component that somebody sent me. I love this thing, actually. It looks like a little robot head to me, but instead of a head, I'm going to go ahead and use it as the butt piece for this one. And I'll just kind of fill that little hole right there. And I think this will give me some really cool spots to run wire from the nylon washers down into that. So I like that. Getting my ream tool here, I'll Dremel out a little hole in the top. I've got another little metal bit, and it looks maybe like an antenna, like pops up or something. So I love that. That's cool. Then I had this idea, like, what if I made like this thing that was offset? So I did these little offsets, and maybe it was like a metal band going across the top. And the more I looked at it, I was like, I don't know. And then I glued it on, and I was like, this is so awful. So I ripped that off. I did have some little clumps of super glue here, so I'm going to have to deal with that. And I'll show you what I did for that in just a second. But glued on another eye, and you'll see I also glued on another little sensor. I got the shoulders here. That looks so great. I filled out one by the cannon, and then I primed everything up. Now that super glue, when I primed it, it left little clumps. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a little slurry. I'm just going to use some sand, some lightweight spackle, and a little bit of Mod Podge. And I'll make like a little slurry. And Ben with BP Customs, he's done something like this. I've seen other makers do this, but you can see you just dab it on. And the goal is this will give the entire robot kind of like a pitted metal texture. So I'm just carefully dabbing it on. I didn't really even have to sand this because I put it on so light, but you'll see once I prime it again and then paint it, it gives a really cool effect. So now I painted the entire robot yellow. I did mask off these little vents because I wanted to paint them silver and I didn't want to have to paint over the yellow. And then you can see I masked off the front eye there as well because I wanted to paint that white. So just painting out these little exhaust pipes. While I've got the silver out, I'm going to go ahead and paint some of my greblies. And as I'm doing this, I'm just kind of working my way around the robot and kind of just thinking, yeah, I want this to be silver. Maybe I'll paint this one white, and just kind of thinking about it as you go. Here I am painting out that zip tie. As I said before, I thought maybe it would look like some kind of silver mechanical piece. And then for my chipping, I wanted to do some really heavy chipping on this. A lot of times I do it a little bit lighter, but the chipping was something that I wanted to really push. So I started with a silver base and I chipped the entire thing. And I just went around, take some silver paint, just dab it, and try and be as inconsistent as possible so it looks more natural. Then I'm going to paint the eyeball white, and I painted the little sensors white too. I was thinking maybe I'll paint them a color, but I ended up just leaving it white. I really liked the feel of that. My idea was to come back in and paint a brown weathering over the top, but before I do all the weathering, I went ahead and put on a whole bunch of water slide decals. This added just a nice effect. All right, here's the brown paint that I'm going to go ahead and go over the top of the metal chipping. I'm not sure if this helped or not, but I do feel like it gave a little bit of layering. I got a little bit of metal coming through the brown chipping, which looks like rust. And again, I kind of went super heavy on this one. When I was looking at the Machine Krager model builders, a lot of times they do some really heavy chipping around every edge and corner. So I think this gave a really nice effect and vibe, and I'm really liking this. And here's kind of a sample of the leg all weathered up versus just yellow and not weathered yet. And you can see this is really given a nice effect. So my final step before I wrap everything up, I am going to use this Down and Dirty Rust, and I'm just going to go over the entire brown area and just add a little bit more rust. And this stuff's really cool because it actually has like an oxidized effect. So we'll go around the whole thing, and I think we'll call this one done. Okay, so Christmas is right around the corner. First off, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope everything goes really great for you. I hope you get lots of cool toys for Christmas. It's been a while since I've done a buy, and I'll be honest, when I first started this, it kind of had like a Minion vibe to it, and I was like, oh, that's not what I'm going for at all, but it all came together once I primed it and started painting it and putting the weathering on there. I was like, this is pretty sweet. So this was a fun one. I hope you enjoy it. Let's do some turnaround shots of this thing, and as always, it's a great day to be a toy nerd. Have a great one.